Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above Average Show! Hello and welcome to the Above Average Show. Thank you for tuning in again. And today's guest is going to be Mary Krans. And as always, I am your host, Joe.
You stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerve learner!
Oh, jeez. Okay, so anyways, Mary, thank you for being a guest on the show.
Thank you for having me,
here.
Joe.
You are
Happy
welcome.
to be here.
I am glad you are here. This is going to be exciting. For any of you who don't know, Mary is an actress. She has worked on a couple of shows. She's been on The Walking Dead, and she's also been on Chicago P.D. If you watch either of those shows, you may have seen her mug on there at some point. When you worked on Walking Dead, what were some of the scenes that we might be able to see you in?
Well, I worked as a Woodbury in season 3 of The Walking Dead, which was a pretty cool thing. It was a lot of fun. And I think the first scene that I would have been shown in was mid-season, I believe, when there was this big gladiator scene that took place overnight. We shot overnight, and it was incredibly awesome because there was like...
Was that when the brothers were fighting?
Yes, and the zombies on the leash. Do you remember that?
Yeah, on both sides, and it's like you either kill your brother or you get eaten by the zombie. Your choice.
Well, then, like, it was just really extreme too because they had these balls of fire, and there was these smoke bombs, and to create like this fog and this chaos. And they created an element where we really were panicked because we had to actually like scatter ourselves and run and panic and dismay.
And everything you're wearing is flammable.
Truth. But it was a lot of fun, and I actually got to know Michael Rooker, the one that plays.
Nice. Really, really good guy.
He's a good
guy. Yeah. I'm trying to think of it. It's Daryl's brother.
Daryl's brother, Merle.
Yeah, that's right.
Merle.
Merle. Depending on your accent.
It's Merle.
No, he's not Meryl Streep. He was not playing Meryl Streep.
No, but he's a character. He had us. We were really, really, really tired because we were filming overnight and we didn't have coffee, and he just kept us cracking up, laughing.
Which, when I found out, was very interesting because on screen, that's the first time I remember seeing him, and he seems like such an asshole.
I know, it's the total opposite because he's such a good...
He's such a great actor.
Funny, too. Yeah.
But then you see him in, like, Guardians of the Galaxy, and I feel like that's more of his character.
It is,
he's just more fun, more
enjoyable.
enjoyable.
I loved seeing him. I enjoyed that movie so much because of him. It was great to see him doing that. That was fun. But yeah, that would have been like my first appearance on that one.
Awesome.
And then continued on through the rest as like a Woodbury soldier was the idea. Like the governor chose me. I would have been in that scene when we're standing out in the lawn and what's his name?
The governor.
The governor.
Yeah, I heard that he's completely not like that character too. He's not as psychotic on screen, and he's like everybody's buddy.
He is. He's a really good dude. He was fun to work with, and it was nice because he showed a lot of respect to the people that he was working with, even though we were nobodies.
Yeah. Which
was kind of fun. Yeah, we did this really cool scene actually, where it was not shown, unfortunately. It was the season finale of In the Tombs, I believe was the name of that episode.
Yes. Yeah, because I just looked that up.
Oh, it is
In the Tombs, yes.
Yeah. So I was in that one. That was like my episode. I was in it quite a bit. It was a lot of fun. But there was this really cool scene that didn't make it to the end, which I'm bummed about. And what happened is Rick had set up a trap in the prison for us Woodburyans that came in, to cause mayhem.
To storm the castle.
Yeah, to storm the castle, which we did. We blew stuff up, and that was fun. But So basically, me and 3 other soldiers were running in the tombs in the dark with guns, and there was tear gas and smoke, and we're supposed to run as hard as we can into a barbed wire wall around the corner, and it was supposed to cut us to shreds,
Ugh.
So what they had done is they had taken out the actual barbed wire and put in like these plastic flexible ones, but we're looking at that wondering how the heck we're going to get through it. And the stunt coordinator was like, well, you're just going to run as hard as you can, and
it just stops you.
It does. And the idea was that they were supposed to push me through. So the guys behind me because we're panicked and we're running for our lives, and
so they're using you as a barricade breaker?
Yes, exactly.
Women and children first. Female equality.
But we supposedly make it out of the barbed wire alive. Just kind of
scratched up.
But it was really cool because the cameras were on the other end of that, and we're just told, to run down this highway and get caught up in it. And our hair was tangled, and they bloodied us up. And then we did a couple different shots on it. The first one, we just ran towards it, tried to shove ourselves through it, get tangled in it. Then we had to try to get ourselves out and went into wardrobe. That's where they bloodied us up and tore our clothes to make it look like we were tore up in the barbed wire.
Did they actually tear them while you were wearing them, or did you give them?
They took razor blades and actually tore.
Wow.
And then they applied the blood. And then it was this really cool thing because then they had to, second time around, they actually placed us in the barbed wire, caught up in it with our hair tangled, and they actually, I was up front and they had a barbed wire that they thought would be cool to make it like it was in my mouth. So they started then applying blood dripping down my mouth to make it look like the barbed wire had got caught in my mouth.
Ugh.
But it was so much fun. I mean, it was so
I'm thinking that
fun.
sounds gruesome, but it's like they've done so much worse stuff on the show by now.
Absolutely. No, this was...
Rick takes a gouge out of somebody's neck.
Yeah.
Is it not?
But, that was a lot of fun. And then not the same day, the next day is the day that I died twice in one day.
Aww.
Yeah. But the great part is I've never in my life actually had to play dead.
You get to die but not play dead.
Exactly.
Nice.
So the first time around, as you all know, the governor totally just went berserk and shot us all cold dead in the street. After we fled, those of us who survived and fled the prison, the governor wasn't very happy with us.
He wasn't happy with anybody.
I mean, he was cursing at us and really displeased. But it was, so we'd gotten out of the vehicles and we're standing in the street and he just started tearing us apart. And once again, the stunt coordinator had worked with me and they put a mat on the ground and covered it with leaves and things. And I was going to come back chosen as a zombie. So there's a certain way that I was supposed to fall because I was shot twice. So he was showing me how I was going to do that.
Did they give you squibs and everything too to wear? To where they would explode the blood shots? Or
no.
Was all done in post?
No. Well, they, the footage, they didn't use a whole lot of that, which is kind of too bad. Because it was just so horrific.
Yeah.
And they didn't show very much footage of that, which is kind of a bummer, but it's all right.
But at the same time, what you don't see almost makes it more horrific.
Yeah. Just
imagining the women and children and all of the survivors getting shot in your head could be more worse, potentially.
That's true. I
than
never thought about
actually
it that
seeing
way.
it.
But it was a heck of a lot of fun. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then, but the weird part is this gun firing off, it really made your heart just pump. I mean, my heart was pumping out of my chest. I mean, it was racing. I was just,
the
you had
adrenaline's
so
flowing
much,
as
yes,
you
there
die.
was so much adrenaline. It was a blast. And then I was able to come back as a zombie and then eat my soldier friends, which was not very kind of me, but they looked yummy, you know.
Take one for the team.
Which I hear that like the intestines and things they do is like just pork, and it's bloodied up with strawberry puree and barbecue sauce.
That doesn't sound too bad.
No.
That actually sounds tasty. I don't know about pork sitting out in the sun for 3 hours, but
Ugh. Yeah.
the tomato sauce and barbecue sauce mixture doesn't sound too bad.
You know, they could
Teach
be
their
onto
own.
something, you know?
It could be worse things. That
It could definitely be worse, that's for sure.
And then you died a second time, you said, too.
Well, guess who pulled up in, what was the SUV or a pickup truck? I can't remember now. It was Rick, Michonne, and Daryl. And at that point, I didn't know how I was going to die. It was either by Daryl's arrow, Rick.
So they don't tell you ahead of time?
No.
It's
No.
more of an improv.
Uh-huh.
When we kill you, you just fall over.
Yeah. But it was this wonderful moment when Michonne showed up with the sword and I was beheaded.
And how do they do that? Is she actually holding something sword-ish?
Yes. Yeah.
That actually hits you in the neck? Or is it just short enough and then they add in an extra foot in CGI later to where
It's all
it looks like it goes through you?
CGI. But she is carrying something.
And they don't actually take your head off, I'm assuming.
No, it's
and
still
then put
here.
it back on.
I think the funnest part about that was, you know, my family wouldn't watch that show because it's too violent, right? And of course, because I was on, they watched it, and they were like pausing all the scenes, and the part where I'm beheaded, they kept rewinding it and pausing it, and they're like, "Mom, you have to see."
I'd be a little concerned if my family wanted to see me dying over and over
Well,
over.
they just thought it was the funniest thing. I mean, I don't know. They were like, "Oh my gosh, Mary's on TV dying."
Well, I can't argue with that because I see my friends dying on screen all the time. It's like, oh, I just watched you die as I'm texting them in the movie theater.
Oh, it's a whole lot of fun.
And then you got to sit in the zombie makeup room then, since you were a zombie, right?
Not much. So do you know there's like a couple different types of zombie work that they do that Nick... And there's like what they call the hero zombie and just your plain Jane zombies. I was shot from behind, so you didn't see my face, just my ponytail and me gnawing on this body.
So they put conditioner in your hair and said, go to set.
Oh no, they don't. That's a funny thing too because I'm blonde. And Andrea's character is blonde. They would dirty it up as much as possible. So they would put this like, well, they literally, you'd come in and they'd put dirt all over your clothes and all over your face and everything. That was your makeup process, like no makeup and dirt. But because I'm blonde, I would have to go in the chair and they would make it really brassy and dirty and darker.
That's
really
cool.
Kind of. So
until you have to take a shower when you get home and get all of that out.
It was awful to get that out of my hair. It took so long.
Like, how long would it take to brush all of that out? Because it seems like it would be hours of getting out leaves and...
It took a few days just to wash that gunk out.
Ugh.
It was awful.
But totally worth it.
Yeah. Well, I saved all the some of the clothes that I had that I wore underneath that were all bloodied and dried up and gross and dirty. I don't know where they are now.
They're in a box somewhere. Somebody will find it in 30 years and sell it on eBay.
Yeah, exactly.
That
and all the bullets that we collected that we were shot at with.
Cool, awesome. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a real quick break. You'll get here a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with the show in just a minute. Stay tuned.
This episode brought to you by bagels. Have you ever eaten a gaggle of bagels? We don't suggest it.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Above Average Show. Our guest here is still Mary Krans, and should I say Mrs. Mary Krans. She is now a newlywed.
Sure
Technically,
is.
because you are still within the first year. Although it's been 7 months now.
Has it really been 7 months, Joe?
August to March, whatever that ends up
Something.
being.
Yeah.
I think that's 7.
Wow.
I think it's actually 6 because you were towards the end of August and now it's the
August
beginning
18th.
of March.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're coming up on 7-month anniversary.
Wow, has it really been that long?
Have you not been getting a gift every month from your new husband?
No, not. Well, every day is a gift with my husband.
Aww.
He's a keeper.
Aw, that's so sweet.
I
So
love
one thing I wanted to ask, which I know this story, but I think it's a wonderful, beautiful story, and it's also film related, which makes it even better. Although I'll just spoil alert, you did not meet on set, so it's not like, oh, he was
We
directing
did
and I
not.
was acting, and our eyes met from across the room.
This is not that story.
That story does not exist.
Not at all.
Unless it's a one-night stand. But this is not a one-night stand. This is going to be years and years. I love and adore you guys.
Aw, thanks, Joe.
So I'm going to go
you.
ahead and let you take over and
Sure.
just tell the story of how you and Ron met.
All right. Well, Ron and I met when he was filming here for The Walking Dead. He's a cinematographer. And this really cool dance that we dance is called 5 Rhythms. And it's kind of a hippie dance, and you just dance your dance, which is perfectly what I needed in life at that moment.
That's what everybody needs in life.
Oh, everybody needs that in life. But, like, I'd just been diagnosed with epilepsy, and I was having seizures, and I was like a total klutz wonder. Like, it was just, I was a mess. And I needed to be able to move my body because I lost a lot of function in the left side of my body, and I needed to dance. And I don't do well, Joe, with the whole choreography and like mimicking motions. I need to just do my dance, and that's what was so great about this. And it's here in Atlanta, my tribe. That's what you call your it's kind of like your church, your tribe, whatever it is, your dance group. And there's all these creatives there, and I started doing this dance, and I believe it was the spring, actually. It was like in this moment now.
Love was in the air.
7 years ago. I think it was 7 years ago now that I would have started this dance. And met Ron there at dance in April. And
did he just like walk up and start dancing? Did he ask you to dance? Were you guys making eyes across the room?
No, so
did you do the fishing pole thing and reel him in?
No, do you know, I was just quietly kind of seeing him, and his Ron dance is my favorite thing about him. And I just saw...
You're going to have to describe this for us.
Oh, I can't even. It's just the most awesome thing. And it's just like, I don't know, when you dance like that, you're showing your spirit and who you are. And it's a really cool thing. And to me, I just saw that was really brave, and that's the kind of human that I want to be with and know. And I was just really drawn to him because of that. And it was great because the friend that had... or actually just this acquaintance. It was like a friend of a friend's friend that I had met and told me about this dance. And I was going with her, you know. And she was like, you know, I know this photographer. It was like, I think you two would get along. You should talk to him, you know. And she ended up, Teresa, you met her actually at the wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's the one that invited me to this dance, to this 5 Rhythms. And... we went out and grabbed a bite as friends. There was a group of us, and Ron and I shared a beer. And, you know, I was just like, I kind of was just smiling, thinking about him all week, you know? And then, so technically our first date was May 7th. And that was...
That's 2 months later? May 4th. May the 4th be with you.
And it was May 4th. I'm so sorry.
Aww.
So May 4th is our anniversary. That was our first date officially. Our first
And for
kiss.
those of you that didn't know, that is Ron in the other room yelling the date, if you heard that.
My bad. Yeah. But yeah, that was our story, basically. So we met and fell in love at dance. And like, here we are, it'll be 7 years later.
And at that time, you didn't even know that he was working in film and TV.
No, not at all. That wasn't like...
And you didn't know that he was on the #1 show in cable of all time.
I actually didn't even know what the show was. And I'd been dating Ron for a couple months, and my brother, Chris, it's his favorite show, and he's like, wait, what? This guy's working on The Walking Dead? And I'm like, yeah, do you know it? He's like, that's my favorite show. What are you talking about? I'm like, I had no idea. I worked on that season, and I'd never seen the show, and I think it really helped a lot too.
And you met a lot of the cast before even going to set.
I did.
And no idea who they were. You were just at a barbecue, and they were everybody else.
They're just people in general, though. They really are.
And
just like us. I mean,
I think that's great too, that you can go somewhere like that, and they're not like, hey, I'm the star of this show, and I should get the best piece of corn. And
most aren't like that. They're just like us. They're just regular people. And
which is great about this cast, because everybody in the cast, for the most part, from what I've heard, have all been really nice, great people, even though they don't necessarily come across that way on screen. Because they're such great actors.
Oh, they're so good. Yeah. But yeah.
Favorite actor on The Walking Dead?
Oh.
Or should we do favorite actor from earlier on and favorite present actor?
Ooh.
Because so many have died.
So many have.
Unless it's the same character all the way through. If you've stuck with one...
I actually really like Carol's character a whole lot, and I liked her a lot as a person. And, I'd met her before, and I actually didn't even know that they were the same person because she was, like, so dirty.
That's right, because he used to be, like, neighbors with her.
Well, Ron's loft. Well, I wasn't, but Ron was.
Yeah.
And I would stay there on the weekends or whatever, and just in passing when she was walking the dog, and I'd be talking to her, and I had no idea that that's who she was. I didn't recognize her. It was so embarrassing to me because I didn't actually put it together until the wrap party, and I'm like, oh.
I've seen you before.
Yeah.
You and your pretty dog, too.
But she's really lovely. She's a good one. And she's powerful on screen. She's a great actress. She was in The Mist.
Yes.
Have you put that together, that a lot of the cast, and even Ron did The Mist?
I put that together 2 years after Walking Dead started. So I think around season 3, I went back and rewatched The Mist randomly because it had nothing to do with anything.
I watched it with you, Joe. Did we put that together or no? There wasn't like a together thing.
I don't remember.
In the same
I just
moment.
remember at some point it clicked, and I was like, "Wait, that's Carol. Wait, they're on The Walking Dead too, and that person's on The Walking Dead." And
also,
there were so
who
many
played the
great
character
actors.
that played Andrea.
And then the Christian lady that was on there annoyed the crap out of me. She wasn't ever on The Walking Dead, but she also went on to do a lot of other big work too.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. That a lot of stars came from
really
that. And they all
cool.
stuck together as family.
They did, yeah. That's awesome. So yeah, I appreciated that a lot when I saw that. I'm like, oh, that's fun.
And that's what I really love about that story is that they're real people. That they're not high and mighty actors and stuff like that. And they're everyday people that you could see at the grocery market, have a conversation with, and never know the difference.
Yeah, well, I think that's why it's so important that people respect them and give them their privacy, because they are just people. And I think they should be allowed to just live like we are, because That's just who they are. It's just their job.
Yeah.
It's just a job that they're doing.
They just get more publicity than everybody else.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if other jobs were doing that? So if the
Oh my
grocery
gosh,
store
no.
clerks all became famous.
Right?
It's like, oh, the cashier at my Walmart. Everybody knows my cashier.
You know, it's interesting, though, because Ron and I had a little taste of that when we were in China a couple of years ago. Because they don't get a lot of Midwesterners there. And especially blonde hair, blue eyes. I mean, it was like paparazzi. Just like constantly they're taking pictures of us. Or wanting to be in pictures with us.
Just because you're from the other side of the earth?
Yes.
So it wasn't that they recognized
We were
Ron?
no, we were just like a rare sighting. They just like were in awe. They just, and big smiles on their faces, but we could not go anywhere without being noticed. It's not like we blended in, you know? So I totally know, we totally had a sampling of what that would be like and what it felt like.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then going forward now, because you haven't taken your honeymoon yet.
Not yet.
We just talked a little bit
October.
about this before we started recording, that you will be going on your honeymoon to South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Rwanda, and Uganda.
Oh, I cannot even wait. Yes. So we've traveled, this will be our second time with a tour group. Originally with the Adventure People, and now they're 1,000 Treks. And it's a really fun way to see the most beautiful, amazing places in the world and do it in a really cool, adventurous way. So we do really cool things. I think on this one in particular, there's going to be some bungee jumping, which I don't quite know if I'm comfortable with that yet. I skydiving, yes, but that one I don't really know.
Bungee jumping is not on my bucket list at all.
Not mine either. And I don't know until the moment comes whether I'm going to want to do that or not.
Yeah.
But
skydiving, I went once. One time was good enough for me. But at least that one time you go down and you're done.
That's
Bungee
just
jumping, you're going to fall 15 times
yeah.
as you're bouncing.
But also I don't like that when you're skydiving, you feel like you're flying, you get a certain point where
your head's up.
Your head's up. When you're bungee jumping, you're it's just the most awkward, awful thing. It's head first and you're just I don't know. And then they're just like jerking on this string. Yeah, I don't know quite yet how I feel about that, but I'm really excited because we are going to do some safaris and spend some time. There's also this dive with crocodiles and swimming with penguins. Yeah.
Diving with crocodiles?
Diving with crocodiles.
How do they make that safe?
I don't know. I have no idea what that's going to look like, but it sounds fascinating.
It does sound fascinating.
Now, the swimming with penguins is like a dream come true. I think that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I think that would be on anybody's bucket list.
Yeah.
If somebody said, hey, you want to go swim with penguins? I don't think anybody would say no.
Right?
Unless they have a fear of birds.
Like my mom. My mom would
not
be down for that.
I have a friend that you know. He's afraid of ducks.
We need to talk about this. I didn't know that. Oh, that's hilarious. I've told you about my mom's fear of birds, too,
yes.
right? Yeah. It's pretty hilarious.
Cool. We're going to go ahead and take another quick break. We will be back shortly. Stay tuned.
This episode brought to you by the all brand new Scandal. It's the only sock and sandal all-in-one combo footwear available anywhere that comes with the sock already pre-stapled into the sandal. How is that for convenient? This is the perfect gift for any father who's rocking that dad bod with little to no fashion sense. It's not a scandal to be sporting a scandal.
And we are back again with Mary Krans as our wonderful, wonderful guest. And we are back for one more story. We're going to have ghost story time with Mary Krans. Mary has grown up with ghosts.
I sure did.
And we are going to hear at least about Henry, and maybe some more. We'll see how many stories you've got to tell us.
Well, how much time do you have, Joe? Because there's quite a few. Well, it's kind of cool. I grew up in this small town in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And back in the day, it was a booming copper mining city. And originally, to begin with, they thought it was going to be like the capital of Michigan. It was just growing and booming, and there was a lot of money coming in. So they built all these big, beautiful mansions. And what happened was there was, the big collapse, and they ran out of copper, et cetera, whatever happened. And it became basically a ghost town to the point where, it's a small town. I think the population even now is maybe 2,000, maybe. And that might be between 3 different towns because they're so small they have to share a zip code. Anyway, but the idea is that there's just like a lot of history, and there's big houses were built and then left. And that's the house basically that I grew up in. It was 5 stories because I'm from a large family, and we had a few ghosts in that house. Actually, there's a few different spirits.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, hopefully nice. I don't know.
Well,
I only know one story, and he was a nice one. I don't know if there were mean ones.
there were so many. So I guess actually you're right, because Henry was later on. That was in Sault Ste. Marie. But let me continue on anyway.
Yes, go on.
Anyway, there was just so it's so interesting to me with these towns that there's a lot of oppression or just sadness that was there. I don't know if that's why spirits dwell there. I don't really understand why a lot of those places, because I know as a kid we would, my parents were really young, and we would rent before we bought our home, and there were so many cases and times where there were spirits in the house or ghosts, and sometimes it was really awful and scary. And I just remember the first one I remember was when I was 6 or 7 years old, and I remember sleeping. We were all sleeping, my whole family, my parents and my older brother and my younger brother, on a mattress together. We brought the mattress downstairs, and I didn't understand at the time. I just remember, oh, this is nice, we were all just sleeping, having a sleepover down here. But it was just out of fear. My parents were afraid, and
so the entire family was sleeping down.
We were sleeping downstairs on a mattress because my parents were afraid, and we didn't know what was happening. We just was slumber party. This is great, But then it continued.
And how many siblings did you have at that time? Was there 3 of you, 4 of you?
There was 3 of us.
3 of you, okay.
Yeah, there's 13 of us total. I'm the oldest, or second oldest. I'm the oldest daughter of 13. So.
And what ages were you at this point?
I was 6 or 7.
And then oldest brother is.
He's a year older than me. We're Irish twins, so he would have been. I was probably 6 and he was 7.
Okay.
And my little brother Chris would have been 3, because
Okay.
we're 3 years apart. Which is kind of freaky too, because evidently, I'm hearing about these stories. I guess I can't really share a story that I remember the moment of just having this sleepover, but I don't remember the cause being because my parents were that afraid. But now I hear these stories, and I know that we only stayed in that particular home for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and my parents ended up calling the landlords and being like, listen, what's going on here? And they just got real quiet. And they said, well, would you like to stay here tonight? And evidently, I don't remember this, but we went and stayed with them until we could find another place to live, because it was that awful.
So they knew.
They knew. Oh yeah, they couldn't keep someone in there.
Did they not divulge that?
No.
Is there any laws that say that they have to divulge?
Evidently not.
Because I think the only law that I know of is if somebody's murdered, they have to divulge that info. I don't know about hauntings.
I don't know.
That's something we will have to Google.
I know. I don't know.
Or if anybody listening knows, send me an email.
Please do share so we know. But it kind of continued from there. It seems like through my whole entire childhood, most of it. There's been a couple places where it wasn't.
Did you ever get stories of what happened that made your parents move down to the basement? Did they ever tell you, this is actually what happened, this is what was going on, this is why we had our camping for 2 weeks?
Evidently, there was a couple different things, but to begin with, there's a story that they share that my Uncle Brian actually was there, and he was sleeping on the couch, and it was actually happening in the basement. And they thought my dad and him thought there was someone breaking into the house. Like the door was actually like the rattling and banging. There's like a loud noise. And my dad had a bat, like the classic ridiculous story of my dad.
Like every horror story starts
my dad's got a bat. Of course he had a bat, because there's no other weapons in the house. Maybe some kitchen knives, but who's gonna grab a kitchen knife? But then the spooky weird part was that there wasn't a door from outside in the basement. So it was just a strange thing. But anyway, let's continue on to...
Let's move on to happier ghosts.
To happier ghosts, to Henry, but I was just kind of trying to lead up to like this foundation of this place and how these spirits kind of tend to dwell there. It's like we went from house to house and had these different occurrences. Anyway, so we moved when I was 13 years old to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and we lived in our home that my parents bought for, I believe, 10 years, until it was tore down and turned into a parking lot. Which was sad, actually, because it was a wonderful, beautiful house. But anyway, this house, when we first moved into it, before there was furniture or anything, we found this medallion that was hidden, and it was a saint on it, and it had the name engraved on the back, and it said Henry.
Where did you find this medallion hidden? Was it like in the basement beneath
No,
some
it was
rocks?
it was on the third story, the third floor, because this is a big old house, Victorian, and it had 7 bedrooms, and there was, the basement, and then there's the kitchen, living room, etc. The second floor was bedrooms, and the third floor was continued on into bedrooms, and that's where we slept, was the third floor.
And are we still with 3 siblings, or did we make it up to 4 or 5 at this point?
At this point, there are 9 of us.
9, okay.
Yeah.
So quite a few years later.
Yes, this was quite, well, I guess that over 10 years. So when we first moved there, I believe there was 6 of us, and then it became 9, 10, and etc. Then we moved out, of course. But yeah, so we found this medallion, and I can't tell you exactly where it was, but I know we found it when we were moving into our rooms on the 3rd floor, and it was just like really interesting to us. We were like, what is this?
Was it gold, silver, copper?
It was bronze.
Bronze.
Yeah. And it had a chain too that was broken.
Like a metal chain, or was it like a Olympic ribbon?
No, it was a metal chain actually.
Metal?
If I remember, I remember the medallion, because the reason being, the more we lived in this house, Henry came out with his shenanigans, and so I mean the reason being, obviously that's why we named the ghost Henry, is because of the medallion. But we would, at first, like the first thing that started happening was we would have these weird occurrences where we'd wake up to our alarm clocks kind of just being turned around or thrown to the floor or just like weird things. And then it became much more where we'd have actual, like, I can't even explain to you, like this chip bag. Do you know how you kind of just roll them up because it's almost done but not quite. And it was laying there next to like the remote controls and the video gaming console and things like that. And it just popped up violently, like it was opened, thrown, and we're all sitting there like, what just happened? and just numerous things. Henry was a total prankster, and he just liked to fuck with us all the time. He was just a prankster. But the nice part about it, I mean, when we moved into the house, it was a little worrisome because there was sounds, you know, like my parents would yell up to us to go to sleep, and we were all asleep, and it was just Henry being loud, playing on the stairs. I don't know what he was doing, but my mom, quite often, 2, 3, 4 a.m., she'd be yelling up the stairs that it was time for us to go to bed, and we were out cold. We were sleeping. But I don't know if he was just like carrying on or what he was doing. But, and instead of being fearful, like sometimes we'd been in the past, we decided to just like embrace that ghost. And in order to do that, we named him. We gave him the name Henry because that was just like the most suiting thing. And he became part of the family. Like we just accepted it. But it was also kind of fun because it wasn't like those scary things. It was kind of strange and spooky, but fun too.
And you had told me previously about sneaking food into bed some nights.
Oh, yeah.
And you were not supposed to?
No.
And what did he do?
What did he do?
I thought you told me that he would take the chips and like spread them over your bed.
Oh, yeah. No, that was like the
Because you weren't supposed to have food in bed.
Oh, those were the crackers, though. Those were the saltine crackers. That's right, Joe. So I had this weird thing as a child that I was like really into saltine crackers and American cheese slices. And like I'd be in my bed reading with a flashlight, and I would have these crackers, and I'd wake up and they'd be like crunched and on my pillow and just like everywhere. But the thing is, it's not like I was sleeping in bed with them. They were on next to, I had like the package next to my book, like on the nightstand. But then I'd wake up and I'd be like swimming
everywhere.
I'd be swimming in cracker crumbs.
It was just prep for being on The Walking Dead.
That's exactly what all that was. It's like my life in this moment is going to lead up to something really great.
Cool, awesome. And I've been listening to a lot of ghost stories because I just love ghost stories. I love everything about them. Totally believe that there is at least something there, even though we can't explain what it is. If it's somebody from a past life, if it's just spirits that are looking for bodies still, or people that have died suddenly.
Do you know what's really interesting is it sounds like you always sound like such a kook when you talk about ghosts and I know like
until you end up in a real haunted house.
I know. And the funny part is, for me, because I was an unbeliever for a long time, even when it was happening around me, because there's that denial, and it's like this is my imagination. And so often when things happen, like just to me, I would try to find a logical reason for it. It didn't actually start to dawn on me that these things were happening until my mom, actually. she's a Christian, Bible-believing, strong woman, and she's just really practical and logical. There's no imagination, there's no creativity, and she's a believer, and she saw things and experienced them, and it really made me because it was the shared experience. It's not something that happened just to me, you know? And some of the more scary things that happened, we kind of just kept them to ourselves. And it's kind of interesting that many years down the road, I'm hearing stories from my older brother about a ghost that took place in that same house. That there was actually, when I was 8, there was a ghost that would stand over and watch me as I slept. And the weird part is, I used to sleep with this like little postcard that had a picture of this little girl that I thought she looked like me. She had like little pigtails, because when I was little, I had just super platinum blonde hair and just pigtails, and I would sleep with this postcard of this little girl holding hands with an angel. Yeah, and it was like, I don't know, I just loved the image, and I would sleep with it, like, under my pillow. And I always, like, sensed that there was something there, and it kind of, I don't know, I wasn't fearful, but I always felt like there was, like, eyes watching me or something, and it was kind of strange, and off-putting in a way, you know, but I would always just close my eyes really tight, and we had 2 twin beds, because I was sharing a room with my older brother at the time, and he was in the bed next to me, and like after all these years, I had that feeling, but I never saw anything. Well, 4 or 5 years ago during Thanksgiving, he tells me the story of how he's like, Mary, you know, when we shared that room together, there was a man that stood over your bed and he watched you sleep. And he didn't want to tell me because he didn't want me to be afraid. But I knew.
You knew.
I knew. I was like, oh my gosh. And
I'm not going crazy as an
I'm not
8-year-old.
going crazy. I thought I was going crazy. But it wasn't. It is such a strange thing. But you don't, you know, there was no ill there, or evil. It was just strange.
It was just there.
It's just there. I don't know what it was doing there. Who really knows? And that's the interesting thing, too.
And a lot of times they don't know what they're doing there.
No. Yeah. And another interesting thing, too, and we had talked about this before, too, is so often you can't distinguish between, like, what's happening and maybe what your mind is creating, because I do have things like sleep paralysis, and I think I've told you about that before.
Yeah.
And also, recently, in the last couple of years, I started having these little episodes where I don't know if it's a little seizure or what it is. At first, I was really afraid because I thought I was seeing ghosts. And what was happening was, I still haven't really put my head around it, but actually it started like three years ago. And what happened was, I'd wake up for a brief moment, and there was someone sitting in my bed with me. And I've had 10 different people that I've seen.
But not real people.
I've never seen these people in my life. And it's not like a projected image. They're so real. I'm looking at them. Like where you're sitting there. And I'm seeing that person.
I just got goosebumps.
And not hearing anything. They might be making eye contact with me, maybe not. Maybe they're staring off. But there are 10 different people that I've seen. And the first time I was just terrified. I was actually trying, and Ron was at home at that time, and I was trying to yell for him because I was so scared. I thought someone broke in because it was that real. And those ones I can't explain. I don't know that it wasn't some sort of form of sleep paralysis or seizure, because there's something called focals where you can actually like see these things. But it was so spooky to think about, and I could to this day I can explain to you in detail what each of these people looked like. Yeah.
That is creepy.
It's creepy, right? It's so creepy. I hope you're not all creeped out right now.
I'll put some really big creepy music over, it'll make it
Right.
10 times worse.
Now that's my favorite thing to
Continue.
talk about. It's like, why do you believe, or what do you believe? Are they spirits? Are they ghosts? Or are they? I mean that's the same thing. But I mean, is it like another world or realm? Is there a door
Is
that
it dimension?
opens?
Is it all one
right?
time that's overlapping?
Is there a certain time where the veil becomes thinner and things are able to pass through? Or there's also this cool book that I read called something like The Ferryman, and this idea was that when you die, your soul needs to move on, and there's this role called like a ferryman. He's kind of like an angel, and he's there in that moment when you pass, and he takes you on. And if he's not there to comfort you, because some people panic and they're just so afraid of death and this
ferryman.
yeah. And he tries, the idea is his job, or she, is to calm that soul and to help them to make the choice to go on and move on. But some don't.
Yeah.
Because they're too afraid. So they stay here. And that's what the ghosts, spirits would be. Okay, so I have...
So once they're self-aware of you...
We're going to sit here and talk about ghosts forever and all night long because there's so many, but I have one more that I just wanted to talk about because it was pretty recent.
This episode brought to you by the friendly ghost in your attic. He's the ghostest with the mostest.
So I work with this nonprofit, Girls Rock, and we have this amazing empowerment program and sleepaway camp that we do in California, near Santa Barbara, in Ojai actually. And it's at this boarding school that's been there forever and ever. And we would sleep in the dorm rooms on the second floor as staff. And it was just like 3 of the dorm rooms at the very end of the hall on the second side. I guess not the second side, that would be the left, to the left. And evidently everyone had moved away from those rooms, and because me and my friend were kind of last, we moved into our rooms last because we were a little late, we ended up with these rooms, and there was the spirit there was really strong, like, and I mean, we didn't sleep for an entire week because we couldn't sleep because we were just like scared of it, like I'd never been before, because it was just like really sad and just wouldn't leave you alone, no matter, you're just like, I couldn't sleep. But you know, we just like the next week we were able to kind of to move away from it, and we were left alone. But when we were in that moment, I was having like these, even when I remember, oh my gosh, no, hold up a minute. See, I'm just fumbling over this show. So, the first year we were at this camp, we only did 2 weeks. And the first week, I slept in those rooms. And then the next week, some of the staff had gone home. There wasn't as many campers, so I was able to, like, move rooms. Next year, the following year, when we were there, we all experienced her. And it was really strange because we would start actually dreaming about her. We all, it's really weird. I can't explain it to you. But I had this weird kind of not dream because I wasn't sleeping. And I had my phone plugged in next to me, charging and the alarm on. And I just remember picking it up, and it had been stabbed with a rose, thorny rose, and the screen was cracked, and there was a thorn sticking through it.
Wow.
And I remember just being like, what the heck? What is going on? You know, it was terrifying. And guess when I went in the morning, I was in the shower and I was trying to find my phone. It wasn't there. It wasn't in my bed. It wasn't plugged in. And when I went to go and find it, because I even thought, I was so out of it, I was like, my phone's broken, you know? And I'm looking for it under the bed, under my pillow, etc., etc. And it was in the window. And that same night, my friend Sierra that was next door evidently was dreaming of something similar. Same idea and concept. Not the same thing, not the same graphic, but she was dreaming about this teenage girl. And then it kind of spread. And then, it gets real crazy because then someone that wasn't even sleeping on that floor from down below, STS, Shannon, dreamt that she was floating in the hallways with this girl, this ghost. And they were talking. And Shannon's like just hanging out, chilling in this dream. They're just floating down all the hallways and by the dorm rooms. And this girl is dropping tarantulas. And she asks her, why are you doing that? She says, well, it's fun. I'm bored. Right? And the weird thing is, the next year, because we've been going to this camp, this boarding school dorm rooms, we've been sleeping in them for 5 years now. And it just gets weirder and weirder. And then what happens was, we never really talked about like what she looked like. We all knew she existed, etc. But then we started realizing that we've all seen the exact same teenage girl. She's about 16, Hispanic, really long black hair, and just really sad. But the weird part is, not last summer, but the summer before, because it ended up burning down, these dorm rooms, this whole campus. In the California fires, it was burned down. But the year before, we kept finding tarantulas in the girls' rooms. And I would have to capture them. Because we weren't allowed to kill them, so I had to put on, just so y'all know, I'm terrified of spiders.
I don't think I would want to kill one. That's a mess.
It's a mess, and you just can't. And so I'm supposed to pretend that I'm not afraid, because they're terrified, and they're screaming. And what had happened was these two sisters were sharing a room, and this tarantula was in her bed, and it was crawling on her. And her sister saw it and was just screaming. And she's like, what? And then she looks and she sees it. She jumps up and it flies off of her. And then I have to go collect it without any fear. Like, here I am. And put it in a cup with a little paper cup and bring it outside. But I started thinking about that dream that Shannon had. About her dropping tarantulas.
For fun.
For fun. Yeah. And then the crazy part is, there was a dream had by my friend Sierra, who she's a medium and she talks to spirits a lot, and she tried to talk with this girl and find out exactly what had happened. And something to do with the fire, we thought. There's a lot of smoke and etc., etc. And a week later, twice we were woke up at 2 a.m. to the fire alarm going off.
Wow.
We had to get all the kids out and go outside where we were supposed to. And we have no idea who pulled the fire alarm and how that happened.
No person.
No, we were all asleep. Super weird, though, that the following year it indeed did burn down.
Yeah.
It's just ashes and stone right now.
For fun, probably.
Probably. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew.
Oh, but you want to hear something fascinating?
Yes.
So one of those 10 people that I was talking about that I saw sitting in my bed, she was one of them. And I saw her probably a couple years before that.
Wow.
Yeah. She was the first one I saw.
That's amazing and creepy and awesome all rolled into one.
Yeah, you can say that.
So let's go ahead and talk about your photography here real quick. We'll take a complete left-hand turn.
Absolutely. You know, all the other things that we do in life, right?
Exactly.
You know about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the fun that we have and all the things that we do to try to find who we are and what we're supposed to do in this world and to find what we love to do.
That is true. And for me, photography has been my passion since I was about 8 years old. My grandpa was an architect, and he would come and spend the summers with us, and he was never without his camera. And we would have to stop. If we were going to the grocery store for ice cream, we'd have to stop and take a picture of this structure or building or whatever it was. And I thought it was awesome. I was standing right there next to him, looking up at it. And I just, fell in love with photography with that first camera. And it's been my art my entire life. And now I've kind of narrowed it down to portraits, because I really connect and love people a whole lot, and I see all the beauty and kindness in them, and so yeah, I'm starting my own photography portrait business, and it's been a lot of fun.
Is there a place where people can check out some of your photos?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's Mary Louise Krans Photography, and you can find me on Instagram. I'm currently working on my website, and that'll be up shortly.
Or it might already be up, depending on when this airs.
That's true. Good note.
I just want to go ahead and thank you for coming again and being a guest on the show.
Thanks, Joe. We've had a good time. This is fun.
Yay, I'm glad you had fun. And also want to thank all the listeners for checking us out on our podcast at the Above Average Joe Show.
Thank you to everyone for listening.
And we are going to go ahead and say farewell and good night, because right now it is night for us. It is 1 a.m. in the morning, so we're going to get some sleep.
We're delirious.
So thank you for listening. Go ahead and check out our other podcasts that we have up, and we will see you next episode. Have a good night. Thank you again to our special guest, Mary Krans. The Above Average Show is written and produced by me. Theme song composed and or arranged by yours truly. Be sure to check out our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitters. Also, you can look us up on Spotify, Stitcher, and iTunes. You can also check out another podcast I co-host, The Extra Unordinary, and other great media content by Moon Possum Productions at moonpossum.com.